Well, hello everybody. It's another episode. Machine of Death. I think you're gonna like this one. So far, it's her favorite. Okay. It's kind of funny. In a sick and twisted kind of way. Alright, well, hope you enjoy it.
Vegetables. The bloke's a fucking whack job. Billy, the director of marketing, tells me this while he's picking his nose with a paperclip. He wasn't right to start with. He's the last bastard who should have got that blood test. He's been treading water all his life, but he's sinking now. He straightens the paperclip, then slides it between his thumb and finger to squeegee the snot off. Unimpeded by my ugh face, he wipes his fingers on the fabric of my cubicle wall. In the background, a phone's been ringing for 5 minutes without kicking into voicemail, and in the next cube, somebody's screaming at a subordinate employee on another line. I want to kill them all and dance to the sounds of their suffering through the junkyard of smashed computers and office plants and overturned desks. I ask Billy, "What did it say?" Tilting his head back, throat tight, Billy inserts the straightened paperclip once again into his nostril. He's wearing a tailored Armani suit that probably costs more than I make in 2 months. This time, he keeps pushing until the wire disappears into his skull. It doesn't talk, he informs me. He makes quotation marks with his fingers. It didn't say anything. If I whacked the stub of the wire with the heel of my hand, Billy would be dead in a second. If he took the test, it might say paperclip or bastard or whim. Instead of killing him, I say, "I know it doesn't talk, you facetious prick. I meant, what did his ticket say? How's Frank gonna die?" Billy tilts his neck to a normal angle and looks at me, a half centimeter of wire emerging from his nose. Frank, the subject of our abject diagnostics, is our mutual friend and colleague, and he's going through a rough patch right now. If I flicked the wire into Billy's face, hard, like a fly on a chair arm, I wonder if that would be enough. Then his test might say flick or slither. If he fell backward, he might crack his head on the photocopier or a desk, and then it'd say wham! And he'd become obsessed with George Michael drunk driving or going postal, or somebody attacking him with an LP broken into lethal splinters. This is how it works. The blood test machine just tells you how, never when. Billy says, "Vegetables. He's going to die by vegetables?" He nods. He took it 4 times, taking blood from 4 different parts of his body, and that's all it said every time, vegetables. My eyes narrow as I visualize random ways to die at the hands of veg, and Billy connects his cheek to his forehead with Scotch tape, pulling it tight so his lip curls into a snarl. Frank lives in a small terrace of red brick houses in an area begging to be demolished and overhauled. Dogs carry knives, and as it's getting dark, I walk past a gang of 10-year-olds wielding a discarded car bumper, openly discussing whether they could break my shins in one whack. I knock on Frank's door, then look down the street at somebody burning a fire in a drum. A section of roof is missing off Jack James' house 3 doors down, and inside the exposed cavity is a shack made of corrugated sheets. Jack used to live in the house, but now lives inside the shack in the roof. He took the blood test and it told him pavement would be his demise. He never considered that falling off the roof is more probable than the ground swallowing him. But this is none of my business, and something I would be interested in witnessing. The door opens. Frank is wearing an old scratched white crash helmet with the visor down. I cringe at his level of mental degradation as the words fish and barrel spring to mind. Crouching, I wave into the visor and he lets me in. Frank's kitchen looks like the courtyard in a scaled-down model of a castle, with cans of vegetables lined up along the skirting boards like a perimeter fence. For some inexplicable reason, he stacked the Green Giant brand too high. Why? I ask. He's a giant, stupid. Gotta stand taller than the rest. I mean, why aren't they in your cupboard with the rest of your food, Mr. Stability? I open Frank's cupboards to find other provisions, ravioli, powdered sauces, cornflakes. It seems that only the vegetables have been evicted. They can't fall on me from down there, Frank says, tapping his crash helmet to acknowledge his ingenuity. I briefly visualize a firework getting stuck inside the helmet, resting on the bridge of his nose and blowing the lenses of his small, round glasses inward. I want to be in the middle of a city as the world falls off its axis and people melt all around me in the street. Pulling 2 chairs out, I make Frank sit and persuade him to take off his cranial protector. His curly brown hair springs out 6 inches in every direction, except for a strand pasted to his forehead with sweat. Within seconds, it bounces to life defiantly, and his eccentric professor appearance returns, with the addition of 2 new forehead zits since I last saw him. Phew, he says. Better, huh? Frank agrees, and I make us a cup of tea. Every night I dream of Armageddon. Mind if I get logical for a second? I ask him. He shakes his head and curls his bottom lip like it's a puzzling question. 1, I say. Even the heftiest can of potatoes, falling 6 inches under your head, wouldn't kill you. Especially with all that padding. Think straight, Frank. 2, you're more likely to trip over these things and break your neck. When was the last time a can of anything fell out of your cupboard? Frank looks sufficiently ashamed, and I assist him in returning his food to its rightful location. World's gone mad, he says, glaring vengefully at a can of niblets. Ever since the Newton twins, they've been setting fire to churches all over the country. I nod, understanding, and pat his arm, even though inside I scorn our species completely and wish ill upon almost everybody. The Newton twins were the first to try to force the machine to be wrong. Both their tickets said old age, so they committed suicide. 10 times they tried, and 10 times they failed. Gun jammed. Car engine died, gas ran out, tree branch snapped, and by now the media was all over it. They injected HIV and it just went away. Concrete slippers in the lake, underwater for half an hour. But the medics brought them back to life. Pictures of health. One of the twins, Julie, jumped off the railway bridge, but her sister was scared of heights, so abstained. Nonetheless, she was caught by the tarp on a slow-moving train and trudged home 3 days later. I try to inject some perspective, but it's hard when religion died overnight. Look, Frank, it doesn't change a thing. It just means science shed new light on it, and our deaths are proven to be predestined. We're still going to die. Same way we always have done. Are you going to wear a crash helmet and eat nothing but meat for the next 40 years, right up to getting run over by a pea-pod delivery truck? He slumps, dejected, then looks at me with those puppy dog eyes that broadcast a big and unpleasant request on the way. Mick, he says, his voice quivering for dramatic effect. I could slap his face, but refrain. What? I'm scared. I could live with old age. That gives you a reasonable chance of having a decent amount of time left, but how are you supposed to live with vegetables? Forget about it. It's going to take you by surprise, whatever your ticket says, but it's up to you whether you greet it with a fuck you or spend the rest of your life crying over milk that hasn't even spilled yet. We all die. It's hardly a revelation, is it? Frank starts crying, so I cave and slap him hard across the face. The sniveling stops and a white handprint lingers on a bright red cheek. Get a grip, I yell. Are we dying younger because of it? No, it's mass hysteria. They've got therapy groups and protesters and are trying to get them banned, but they're making too much money to ban them. And all you repulsive fashion followers taking tests and then blubbering about it like you're an unwilling victim seem to have forgotten one thing. Prior to receiving your delivery note, you were still slated to croak one day. You weren't immortal just because you didn't think about it or know how. So stop thinking about it, and it therefore ceases to exist. Okay? Frank nods, his eyes still wet but now wide and grateful, and then he asks me, will you stay a few days till I get my shit together? Look, I tell Frank, making my best I'm not joking face. Just so you know, this has taken our friendship too far. You're abusing my good nature, and this is wrecking my important plans for the week. So let me make myself clear right off the bat. I'm in charge here, or I walk. We're going to face this stupid fear head on, or I walk. I'm not wasting my precious time having an Arrested Development pajama party with my derailed friend for recreation. This is inconvenient. So if you're not ready to deal with it, I'll get my stuff and come back when you are. Comprende? Frank nods, his lip trembling, and I fling his jacket at him, aiming to snap the sleeve into his eye, but missing. The outdoor market is busy and loud, allowing for nothing faster than a shuffle through the damp cardboard-smelling clusterfuck trapped in a repulsive conga line of aged welfare recipients in unwashed brown clothing. We're surrounded by carts piled 8 feet high with vegetables, and Frank's face is the color of fresh cauliflower. I can tell the spineless little rodent wants to skitter off and cry, but per Rule 18 I enforced, pertaining to my conditional residence in his stinking asylum, when shopping for vegetables, we are handcuffed together at all times. The key is in my right sock. Some people are so weak they'll go along with anything you say. Slap them in the face a few times and you could tell them the moon is made of Edam cheese. Prior to leaving the house, per Rule 11, I made him smoke a joint and have been whispering paranoia-inducing suggestions into his ear all morning. The poor sap's eyes are pink and perpetually brimming with fear tears. I could reassure you, Frankie, I tell him as we pass between 2 wheelchairs loaded up with bulging bags full of carrots and cabbages and sprouts. But it'd completely defeat the purpose of my stay. In addition to his regular blend of ugly, pathetic, sniveling, disgusting, and completely at my mercy, Frank looks confused. I get my wallet out, and already he's shaking his head, so I grab his cheeks with my free hand, squeezing hard enough to give him a toothache. You need to face this alone, I tell him. I can't be there forever. You have to build some self-reliance, Frank. Now, go buy 30 pounds of whatever veg scares you the most, and before the seller bags them up, I want you to sniff them and inhale the essence of your terror. Look the devil in the eye, Frank. Now. We take the motorway home, Rule 31, requiring that Frank watch as I tailgate and cut off, and drive with reckless abandon around a 16-wheeler Smith's garden produce truck at 90 miles an hour. The sadistic delights are never ending in this vegetable-laden culture. It's raining and the road is slick, and Frank is curled up in the back seat, whimpering and surrounded by sacks of every vegetable we could find. As the truck driver blasts his horn, I flip my middle finger at him and then take a slug from a quart of vodka and start typing a text on my phone. Frank starts crying and I grin. It's late now and Frank's asleep on the sofa. Earlier on, before he crashed out drunk, he asked me, "Haven't you ever been curious? Hasn't it ever tempted you?" I said no, but I was lying. I took the test 3 weeks ago. Everybody's curious. It's impossible not to be. But my curiosity was aroused in a different way than most. The testing brought death close and made it seem normal. People realized once again that death is everywhere, all around us, all the time. And out of the panic and the closeness came opportunities to assist destiny. I always suspected I was capable of such foul deeds. Billy's funeral was on Saturday. His ticket in the end would have read Icy River or Cut Brake Lines or Betrayal. I hated that smarmy prick from the moment we met, and my only regret is not seeing his face as he died. The demented old bastard next door and his piss stench? I have no idea what his ticket would say, but I beat him to death with his noisy dog and stuffed them both in the oven. My ticket's worn now, thumbed and crumpled. But as I scoop a handful of cold mashed potatoes from the pan and get the roll of tape so Frank can't spit it out, I read for the 100th time, "Electric chair." I screw the ticket up and flick it in the trash, smiling, then walk toward him, wielding what he's learned no longer to fear. Story by Chris Cox.
Well, did you like that one? Yeah. She liked it so well, she read it 3 times. She really got into it on that 3rd take. Put a little more emphasis on the syllables. Okay. Anyway, if you like this, thumbs up. Hit that subscribe bell so you can see when the next one comes out. And it's a really long book. We're only like a quarter of the way through it. Got a lot more to come. Okay. See you in the next one. Bye, guys.